I live close to a creek, as you can see behind me. It's a very small creek, but you can actually fish these small creeks. It just takes a different set of skills. So in today's Tactical Tuesday, I'd like to welcome you to small creek fishing. All right, I'm going to show you how to tie a fishing knot for those of you who do not know. This is a knot that my grandmother taught me how to fish when I first started, and I've been using it ever since. All right, this will work for a leader, whatever you got. Feed line through hole. Pinch the base of it down here. You'll take this end, which is called the tag end, and you'll wrap it over about, I don't know, 5 or 6 times. Then your lead end, put it back up through this loop right here. See how that worked? Oh, the hook stuck to my finger. But yeah, you take it and you put it back up through there. And then, you see the other loop? You pull it, the tag end through the other loop. And you'll end up with a situation that kind of looks like that. See that? So then, you take, and I like to just pinch it with my fingers. This is the line that goes back to the fishing rod. And it just will slide right down to the top of it, right there. Boop. Can you hear those goats in the background? Goats are loud. That looks good. I'm just gonna clip this end off. It's a good solid knot. I've been using it for years. So as I mentioned, small creek fishing takes a different set of skills. There are so many obstacles in the way when you're out here in these tiny little creeks. Trout live in these little creeks. It's a brown trout species. I think they're spotted, but they generally hide. They like to hide underneath the weeds, on the side walls, next to the rocks. So what I'm gonna do right now is something called a float. I'm gonna take my bobber and my hook and bait, and I'm just gonna slowly float it down into some locations that I believe fish might be hiding. These trout are predators. So the minute they see something that they can eat, they're gonna go for it. As you can see, Rosie's up there disturbing the water. We'll see how that affects us. But I think we'll probably catch 1 or 2 little ones today. Just my guess. When I wasn't looking, my earthworm ran out of the bucket, so I run out of bait. But I can just lift up some of these rocks here in the area and see what I can find. I mean, you can see how this can easily take your mind off of whatever's going on. You can get easily distracted just being in an environment like this. Just digging around in the ground over here, I found a nice earthworm. Snip off a little section of that, and I'll save the rest. Here's a technique that I like to use while creek fishing. I let out just a little bit of line, and I hold the line with the side of my thumb here, and I'll swing it. The edge, I don't know if you can see that in the camera frame. I'll move over here and do it. But you can see there's a lot of things to get tangled up on. So I don't want to cast. There's no reason to cast out here. But you can literally just drop it right in the right section that you want. And already I can tell that my bobber's too high up. The creek is not that deep. So that's going to be the first thing I'm going to do, is adjust the depth of my bobber. So let's do that. You just press this black button, and then once you do that, you can slide it down. That's about the depth I want right there. So this is really the depth you're looking for between the bobber and the weight, because the bait's going to float behind it. Stream is going behind me, it's going down that way, so it's gonna float this way like that. So we'll see how that works. Then I can just kind of slowly let out some line and let that bobber float downstream. Just gonna let out some line and float it a little further. But what I want it to do is I want it to go right to that little section over there. So give it some more line. Nothing over there, so I'm gonna just, if they see it, they'll strike it right away. Rosie, come on. You're not helping me, sweetie. Oh. That scared her. That was interesting. I got a bite while she's standing right there. Let's try it again. Oh, there it is again. Can you see it? Bobbing down. When it gets a hold of it, it'll do that right there. Then I got one. Yeah, it's just a little brook trout. Okay, let's see what we got here. What do you think, Rosie? Got him? There he is. That was a nice little strike. He took it underwater. I'm going to. You can see that they've got some little teeth on them, so they're predators. This one's probably about 6.5 inches long. I'm gonna pull the hook out real quick. Sorry, I'm trying to use 2 hands. There he is, right there. Just a beautiful little species. Now you can catch these all day long, right here in this tiny little creek. You could survive on something like that if you had to. It's a nice protein source. And let's move a little further down creek and see what we can find. Okay, there are going to be some scenarios when you don't have access to what looks to be a really nice little fishing spot from upstream to float your bobber downstream. You can see how there's a lot of weeds and everything in the way. So I'm gonna fish from downstream going upstream using the same technique. Now you notice I got in the water and everything is flowing this direction towards you. So any of the stuff, the sediment that I'm pulling up, and anything that gets disturbed is gonna go that way, not that way. So I lost most of my worm on the last adventure, so I'm gonna let out some line here. I like to use a longer fishing pole in the creek because it gives me access to places that might be harder to reach. So you can start anywhere you want to and just start floating your bobber. You can put it in places that are closer to the edge where you think maybe there's something. Another technique is I'm just gonna put it right in the middle, float it down. You can see it kind of stopping. That means that the water level over there is low. So I'll give it a little tug, pull the weight past wherever it is. You can help it navigate in whatever direction you want. This looks like it might be a good area. So I'll just keep my bobber there for a second. It takes some time to get used to this technique, but I've been doing it for a long time. So I'll just float that bobber down this way. People that know me know that I'm a Sasquatch fanatic. And to me, what Sasquatch is really all about is you know, finding your peace with nature. Sasquatch can be squirrels, it can be coyotes, it can be camping, it can be fishing. I just love the idea of reconnecting with nature because, you know, it's really easy to lose yourself in a situation like this. I'm not thinking about anything but exactly what I'm doing. And in the tangled lives that we're living right now, that's something that's coming at a premium, you know. Fortunately, I live close enough to something like this where I can hang out with Sasquatch out here. But I will say that, you know, for me, fishing is top of the list, and I can spend all day, every day fishing. It doesn't have to be that way. It can just be a quick reset. Got my feet in the water, I can feel the water flowing. It's just beautiful out here. All right, so I don't really have any more worm left, which is okay. I'm just giving a tutorial on how to do this. But if I wanted to drop it in a location over the top of a log, you can really have a lot of control like this. And you just barely put it right where you want to. You never know where those little fish are going to be hiding. There are a lot of different species of trout. I'm not exactly sure which is what lives in this creek. There are crawdads and bottom feeders and probably some other type of predators. When you come to an open area like this, generally you don't want to fish right in the middle of it because other predators like, you know, birds or whatever could come down. There's a lot of blue herons out here. They could come down and just pick one off. So they stick to the sides. You want to fish the sides. If you find a situation like this where there's overgrowth, usually they'll be hiding right underneath it. So if you just get close enough to it, like that, trout are predators, so they will come out and attack it right away. If they don't attack it right away, you just keep on moving downstream until you find a spot where they're living. Some creeks, like this one, salmon make their annual route up here, so we'll find, you know, big salmon up in this creek. By the time they get here, they're so beat up and they've had quite a journey, you almost just want to let them go. You know, the eagles will come and get them, and the coyotes, and it's food for everyone. But there's something to me just wrong about pulling a salmon out of the creek at this stage of the game when they've gone so far to spawn. It just doesn't seem right, so I don't do it. Another handful of tips for you from me are to just look at the banks and look at, you know, the type of bugs that are in the area. There will be beetles and potato bugs, crickets, and all of those things are good bait. You don't have to have worms. I just find that the worms are the easiest to find and the easiest to put on a hook. And generally, they're the only things I ever catch anything out here with. But if you have a lure, if you're using a lure or a jig or anything, match it to some type of bug that's in the area. Creek fishing is very involved, so your mind has to focus on what you're doing, or your tackle will get hung up and you won't be able to identify the spots that you've already been in. You don't want to disturb the water. You can lose your bait. It's just something I really enjoy, and I hope that here on Tactical Tuesday you guys find a little kernel of something that you can use in your quest to get back to base. Joe Tafoya, signing off.